we're both from California. I haven't
And
been.
I well remember your performances with Rhapsody and Taps. You always have been a standout on stage.
With Lynn
Linda
Dally.
Soul, yeah, Danelle. Well, she's now Ellison.
Right. With Lynn Dally at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Linda Soul. Yeah. I don't think I was in Rhapsody and Taps. I was definitely with Lynn Dally and Dancers.
I remember seeing you on stage with them. I don't know what it was, but I saw Lynn Dally at Rudy Perez's Celebration of Life.
Wow. Yeah, I think that because I was definitely with Lynn Dally, but I don't know how to tap. So Rhapsody and Taps might have been with Pauline Aquino, maybe, who danced with Pauline, and I both danced with Jeff Slayton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for being here.
Sure. I mean, Michael had, I guess his other guests, and I just actually put a pause on a panel for Dance USA, talking about Dance USA, because it was, first of all, they asked me really, we'd been talking about it since the last panel I did that. They asked me in March for something early May, and I go, okay, I'm so grateful, yes, but I'm thinking, I don't know if I can get that together so quickly with everyone's schedule. And I was right. So the panel came up and it was so lopsided in terms of the people who couldn't be there. So I put a pause on it. But anyway, yes.
So just quick hello to those of you who've joined us so far. Thank you for attending our event this evening. We're just going to give it another couple of minutes for others to arrive. We actually have a lot of folks registered for the event, which we're super excited and happy about. It's going to be a great next 75, 80 minutes, however long we last together, and really, really looking forward to it. So just for those of you who've arrived so far, just hold on, grab some coffee or a different type of libation, and we'll be starting in a couple minutes. For those last couple of folks who just joined us, we're going to wait another minute or so for some folks to jump in before we start. We have a lot of registrations for this evening, so we just want to make sure we have a good, solid group of people. So we'll be starting in just 1 minute.
I'll have some green tea while we're waiting.
Nice to see you, Arlene. Cute haircut.
Thanks, Phil.
How are you? Are you in Paris? What's going on? Where is this?
This is Blackpool. This is the Winter Gardens at Blackpool.
Oh, that's right. Arlene is an incredible ballroom samba star, as well as being I think the biggest nerd at Lincoln Center. Is that your official title? The biggest archival nerd at Lincoln Center.
That's not true, but thank
I
you.
I met Arlene when I was a New York Public Library Fellow, and she was helped me get through the library system and find all of the things. And she was also instrumental in uncovering George Lee's legacy, which was just made into a short film 10 times better. So I always love seeing Arlene. And we have Kirati here too, incredible choreographer.
Phil, do you want to?
Hi, Kirati. How are you?
Good.
Do you,
Nice
do
to
you want
meet
me,
you.
you want me to kick us off, Michael?
Yeah, I figured 7:03. I think people are going to kind of saunter
They'll trickle in.
over the next.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for everyone being here. Just wanted to give sort of a larger gold standard update as to what has been happening. We had an incredible AAPI Heritage Month with Ed Liang earlier this month. I just got back from an Asian Voices Choreography Festival at Ballet West, where I premiered new work alongside Ed, one of our board members. And we have a week at the Kennedy Center, which is our big 10,000 Dreams Choreography Festival. We open with an Asian film festival that I curated that is outdoors at sunset this Friday at the Kennedy Center. And then we open Tuesday with 7 American dance companies, or actually 5 American dance companies, and then the National Ballet of China and Singapore Ballet are our guests on a gala program honoring Chu Sang-go, who is a trailblazing Asian American choreographer. So we're actually doing a retrospective revival of a lot of his repertory and seeing what, just giving the chance for this next generation to take a look at his choreography. Also with our gold standard folks, we're putting together hopefully another round of data survey, so we can look at the pipeline for Asian Americans, where there's areas that we can improve access for our community. But really the name of the game for us is to drive membership. So if you're not already a member, please think about joining and tell your friends. The point is, it's $25. Think about it as like an NPR sort of donation. But essentially what we need to do is, in order to go after larger funds so that we can reinvest in the community, we need to show that we have a community that has buy-in. So tell your Asian creative friends. They don't even have to be in dance. They can be painters or composers or costume designers who are interested in being a part of this community. Just telling your friends about that is the biggest way you can help. So please consider doing that as well. And also, if you're interested in stepping up as a board member, as a volunteer, serving on one of our committees, we're looking to build this community from the ground up. So welcome anybody who wants to input in any way. But yeah, I'm really excited about tonight's program because I think it really fulfills a critical part of our mission, which is that the large service organizations, they can't really get to this level of nuance just because we're a smaller minority group, but yet we also have these big complex issues. So we're able to create this platform and this space together and to be in community and to really talk about some of these Asian issues in a space that is centered around our experiences. So this conversation in particular, I've been very excited about. And yeah, I want to introduce you to Michael Sakamoto, who will be our host this evening. Take it away, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Sakamoto. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm coming to you from traditional Nonotuc land in what most people refer to as Western Massachusetts. If anyone would like to put their identifying information in brief at all, including land acknowledgement, name, gender pronouns, practice, whatever you want, favorite kind of dog or cat, please do so in the chat. Just a quick looking back at what Phil just mentioned, so about our organization, Gold Standard Arts Foundation. Our website is goldstandardarts.org, and if you are interested in becoming a member, you can go straight to goldstandardarts.org/membership. And you can read all about the benefits and all of our really great programming on the website. So without further ado, oh, and I should identify myself as well. So I, for the last few years, I've been a founding board member at Gold Standard, now on the advisory committee. And I artistically identify primarily as a dance theater artist, rooted stylistically, genre-wise, culturally in Buto and funk. And I'm also a dance and performance and culture educator, scholar, and also a curator in my day job as a performing arts presenter. So, but tonight, really excited to have a community conversation around the topic of American dance and performing Asianness. This is a guided community conversation around artistic, cultural, and professional issues at the intersection of the US-based concert dance field and, quote, Asian identity, unquote. Featuring acclaimed choreographer, performer, and educator Donna Uchizono with us as our special guest. Our goal tonight is to prompt discussion of critical challenges and creative solutions in our community. Questions such as who is considered Asian or Asian American in the dance and performance world and why? What privileges or obstacles might white supremacy, patriarchy, and other forms of dominance use to try and frame or control artists of not only Asian American, but also Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander descent, as AANHPI folks are often sort of bunged together in the same category for sometimes very useful in solidarity reasons and sometimes for reasons of control. What are some responses, strategies, or possible solutions, most importantly, for artists to navigate, survive, and possibly even thrive in today's concert dance profession? And how might such skills be useful for artists working in other genres or art forms? So the plan tonight is for basically Donna and I to have a conversation unpacking some of these issues in terms of her experience as really an amazing, incredibly accomplished career dance artist, and taking some of those issues or the way of talking about them in terms of ourselves and our community in order to broaden out to a larger community conversation in the latter part of this event, of our time together. And we'll have 2 or 3 breakout room discussions after kind of taking the temperature of the room and see what folks are most interested to discuss. And then at the end of the event for a few minutes, we'll come back together to share ideas and you know, see how we feel about what to look forward to. I also just very quickly want to, you know, because it's always an issue in terms of, you know, we are all individuals, but we are all just individuals. Just acknowledging that the 2 people sort of, I don't want to say simply leading, but opening this conversation anyways, are 2 Japanese American, East Asian American dance artists. And, you know, that's both the richness and also the limitations of our experience. But again, we're going to get to this whole room as soon as possible. And hopefully the larger conversation will elicit a diversity of perspectives and experiences, because that's what really matters. Donna Uchizono is a dance artist based in New York City and artistic director of Donna Uchizono Company, which has toured throughout the US, Europe, Asia, South America, and Australia. A United States Artist Awardee, Guggenheim Fellow, and Bessie Award recipient, Uchizono has been distinguished by numerous national awards and grants. She's been commissioned to create works for notables such as Mikhail Baryshnikov, Paula Vogel, David Hammonds, and Oliver Sacks, to name a few. Uchizono is active in the community and is committed to mentorship and advocacy for young dance makers. She served as a mentor for Sugar Salon, Double Plus at Gibney Dance Center, and currently, through Donna Uchizono Company's own choreographic mentorship program, the Shared Choreographic Practice. She founded the Artist Advisory Board at Dance Space Project in New York City, initiated a panel series on issues in the dance field at Gibney, and has also served as a grant panelist for various funding institutions. Since 2022, Donna has been humbled by the distinction of being the first and only American-born choreographer of Asian ancestry in the history of modern dance, who has received both cumulative national award recognition and toured an eponymous dance company across the US and internationally. She's been using this odd status as an advocate to shed light on the issues of the invisibility of American-born choreographers of Asian ancestry. So I just want to take a moment and say welcome and thank you, Donna. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. So I'm Donna Uchizono, and I go by she, her, and I live in Lenapehoking, which is the land of Lenape in Manhattan, Manhattan. And I am right now in the Lenape Muncie, which is in Harlem. And so I keep muting myself because where I live, a lot of dirt bikes like to travel near my window. So it might get a little loud. So I'll apologize ahead of time for that. Yes. Did you want me to continue talking? Or?
I think we'll probably, why don't we jump in maybe to some prompts, and then I think a lot will come out in the next few minutes. So I'm curious to start out with the first question. We're just going to jump right into the real stuff. So Donna, what are one or two key or prominent similarities or differences between how you see yourself as an Asian person of Asian descent or Asian American, or an American of Asian descent, and how others see you as, quote, Asian?
And are you talking specifically in the dance field or just in general when I leave my apartment in Manhattan?
Well, if you're personally, I don't, to me, they're inseparable, or at least they're made to be inseparable. So I think you can answer that question however you want, however's most prescient for you, most useful for you.
So, such huge question. So I think that, first of all, let me just say that when I think of the term Asian American in general, for me, in general, on a national level, all Asians that are on this continent, including Hawaii and Alaska, are Asian American. I don't care when they got here, they're Asian American because they're going to probably have a similar experience that I have, which is, doesn't matter that I'm American. What I think that most of the experience that I experience is one of just being the perpetual foreigner. And I think that I grew up in Southern California. Originally, I grew up in an area that didn't even have a name because it was so poor, but it was in between La Puente and El Monte. And so and all my friends were Mexican American, and I thought I was Mexican. And so did they. They didn't even question that I wasn't Mexican. And when my dad, he was originally a Methodist minister and then left the church and then went and got his PhD and got a job in Fullerton, Orange County, California. We moved at a time when there were no Asians there. So I think in my high school, in my junior high and high school, there was one other Asian beside my sister and I. And so the racism, moving from the La Puente area I found out that I wasn't Mexican, nor was I white. And it was a shock. It was a shock when I moved to Orange County, California. And, so I think that the kind of racism there was, I mean, if I was walking home, high school boys would follow me and say they were going to follow me to my home and kill my parents. And I got kicked. I got smashed in the face. So my experience of being an Asian in Orange County, California at the time, before more Asians moved to there, was one of just being I don't know, I felt like I was from Mars. And so what is interesting when you say, like, what is your experience? So in New York, obviously it's so much more diverse, but even I live in Harlem, and usually if some guy, and you know, they're trying to be nice, I guess, but they'll talk to me in some foreign language that I don't understand. And I think even so I think that there is a sense of being a foreigner is been a general kind of experience. And it's also an experience that I don't think about, and I get shocked every time, and because it's not, it doesn't happen like 24/7, but I get shocked by the like, oh, right. I, yeah, it kind of shape it. I'm still not used to it. It takes me out of, you know, the inner world that I am living in. Um, Now, what is interesting is, well, we're now talking about the dance field. So, I guess it was maybe it was 2010, it was, or 2009 when the Dance Heritage Coalition in the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts deemed me as a choreographer that was deserving of archival and preservation. And so that was great. And I think that when I came on the scene, it happened very quickly for me. It was word of mouth, and I made a piece. I rented Dance Space Project with 3 other choreographers. It wasn't even curated. It was through their community access. And then um, my best friend Nikki Castro said, "You're a choreographer, Donna. Stop trying to be another company. You're a choreographer." And I go, "But I haven't made anything yet." She goes, "I know you're a choreographer." So BB Miller came and saw Nikki dance and was in my piece, and it was because of BB Miller. She came up to me and she said, "Who are you?" I go, "Donna Uchizono." She goes, "You're a choreographer. I'm going to have Ralph Lemon and David Dorfman come and see you." And then Ralph came, and then he said, "Oh, you know, there's this thing in Minneapolis. I'm from Minneapolis. I don't want to do it, but I think you should do it." So it just kind of tumbled like that. And um, I, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept making work. And then like a couple, like 2 years later, we were like Impulse, no, not Impulse. It was the a festival in Vienna called me and said, "Would you like to come?" And I go, "Who are you and how did you hear of me?" So um what is so my work is considered contemporary abstract, call it. I wish abstract expressionism wasn't overused, because I feel like that's kind of what I do and some of my colleagues do. But I realized, I guess, you know, as I was kind of going in this kind of, it was very, the velocity of it was quite fast, and I couldn't keep up. That I didn't have any people that I could talk to about touring to, like, across, you know, like the United States, and then to Europe, and then to South America, and various places. Um, and and being American that is doing work that is, I guess, is coming from a white lineage, having audiences that are mainly white. And so I look to BB Miller and Ralph Lemon as my kind of models of choreographers who were people of color, but who were kind of in this white lineage and had predominantly white audiences. But yet they had a lot of people to talk to about this. And I felt very isolated. So when this odd distinction, I think horrible, painful distinction happened, I went into a deep depression. And because it was the weird thing is that I was having a very different experience in the dance field, in that people weren't. I remember David Hammonds, who's a visual artist, and he had done this this little set for us, and he saw this flyer, and we were going to tour to I can't remember. It was a tour, I think Vienna and Portugal and Hungary, or I can't remember. At any rate, and he looked at the flyer and he said, and David is African American visual artist, and he said, he looked at it and said, you know, Donna Uchizono, American choreographer, you know, da da da. He goes, D, they're calling you American choreographer because that's deep. And I said, what do you mean? I am. He goes, yeah, but they're not calling you Asian American choreographer. They're calling you an American choreographer. And I go, oh, David. And at the time I thought, what's he talking about? And I realized later, oh, yeah, like I didn't feel like I had anyone to talk to about, you know, I remember going to Romania and I was sitting at a bar with talking to people, and this guy was listening, and he looked over, he was Romanian, he looked at me and he goes, you're American? And I thought, oh no, here we go again. You know, he's gonna say, you don't look American. I go, yeah, I'm the, you know, I happen to be the representative for this kind of festival, da da da. And he goes, 40 years too late. And so I thought, oh my gosh, it was funny because he didn't mention anything about Asianness at the point. So in the dance world, it's been an odd experience. It's been convoluted in this odd, and I think it's because my work isn't identity based. I'm not sure. So I might be getting off the subject here and I apologize if I am. But
yeah, sorry.
Anyway, so I think that when I emerged from this deep depression about this weird distinction, I was looking at, I go, yeah, I know there are other people like me. And I was looking and I thought, it's interesting because, and a lot of these people are my really dear friends and dear esteemed colleagues. So I have, you know, I'm glad they're getting funded and they're getting presented. But I realized that the scales were they weren't balanced, in that Asian choreographers that in this country that were getting funded tended to be Asian born, and that American born or American raised choreographers weren't getting, except for me, weren't getting the kind of recognition that they deserved or they should get. And so what is interesting is when I was mentioning it to my colleagues, and there was one colleague who I loved her response, because the typical thing that would happen is she, you know, I say, blah, 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 this weird distinction, you know, what should I do with this? And she's like, oh, Donna, you had mentors. And then she would name these people that are my friends that are esteemed. And I said, how would you feel if if you had that distinction and I start naming these incredible artists from Zimbabwe and Nigeria and Ethiopia? And she goes, oh my God, I've been called out. I've been called out. And I said, yeah, even you are doing that to me. Because at that moment, when I'm talking about American choreographers, you're not looking at me as American, you're looking at me as Asian. And so there's that. And so why this distinction, and also it's so specific, and there's a reason why it's specific, because it has cumulative and national in there. And because what has been really sad is a lot of Asian people have been really angry at me. And I go, I didn't do anything. And they're like, well, what about this person? What about this person? They should have. I go, exactly. What about that person? How come they don't have the national record? That's my point. My point is it's localized, like maybe, the West Coast, or maybe in Minneapolis, or maybe in Atlanta. But it's like they don't get to break out on a national level. And yeah, so those are my ideas about Asianness and what the kind of impact that it has on me. And I I've been using this sad distinction. I've been talking to funders, I've been talking to presenters. I did a panel last year for Dance USA. I was supposed to do one in May, but it was too soon. It was too lopsided. I couldn't get the people. It was the short of the lead time up to it. I knew it was going to be too short, and most of the people that I wanted were already booked, which I already knew would happen. And so, but I would love to have a think tank, but supporting a 2-day think tank with people from all over the place. Don't know how to do that yet. I have one very minuscule possibility. So, but it takes up a lot of space, as you know, Phil and Michael. And like, this is not what my strength is. I want to just make work and continue making work, but I just am compelled to also spend lots of time thinking about advocating for more visibility for American-born or raised choreographers in this country.
Thank you. That's that's amazing and intricate and alternately wonderful, and of course frightening set of experiences that I'm sure a lot of folks in the room can relate to in various ways. You sort of already answered my next question, which was how these sort of realities affected your artistic practice or career, which you totally talked about for the last few minutes. I'm curious. So a couple other things before we kind of open it up. Oh, Phil has a quick.
I had a question on that note. I'm just a burning question, Donna. I think for Asian Americans, but also other immigrant groups, we have this pressure of, if we pull something from our heritage, a fan dance, a dragon dance, we're labeled as an ethnic artist to presenters, and that's the box we fit into. But if we do something that it's in a Eurocentric style, like contemporary ballet, then we're called derivative of Balanchine or Robbins or something. So there's like really no winning in terms of expressing yourself as an artist, but always being seen as Asian and not default and not center. So how do you navigate that in terms of both your creative practice and also how you talk about your art when you're, say, going for funding or trying to get people to see beyond the Asianness and see the American artists? Could you give us, some of the listeners, some tips on how you've navigated that particular conversation?
I don't know if I don't know. I mean, Phil, I'm sorry if I don't answer this well. I don't know if I've consciously figured out how to do that. I think that for me, and this was a long time ago, and I'm not faulting the A4 at all, because I think it's a great organization. But long time ago when I applied, they didn't give me a grant, and they said because my work wasn't Asian enough. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because even though my work is quite, is abstract and expressive, I can't get away from, I'm Asian, and it took me a long time, that long journey, painful journey, to start to love myself from, the horrible experience of racism. And so I have always been interested in abstract. When I was going to high school, I thought from the age of 14 I was going to be an OBGYN. And it was, I was wanting to go to USC medical school. I remember, I think I was maybe a sophomore or junior, and I either had to take tennis, and I said, I cannot let tennis ruin my 4.0 GPA. I just can't. What else is there that I can take during this damn period? And they said, orchesis. I said, what the hell is orchesis? They said, oh, you make dances. And I go, oh, okay. Well, I took ballet when I was young. I could do that. But I need to, I go, okay, you're gonna have to work hard. You need to get an A because you need the scholarships. And so I took this class, and people were making dances about, and I was a lab assistant. Like, I was so serious. I was a science lab assistant to the teacher. And we were studying electricity. And I'm like, and people were like growing up as flowers. And I go, oh, what? I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, I'm like a serious scientist here. Like, what are people doing here? So I said, I'm gonna do something really kind of simple. And we were doing this whole electrical thing, and I couldn't really do, I go, I'm gonna do something really simple. And so my friend and I, we were back to back, and I went, and we broke apart. And the teacher said, and the teacher knew I was serious. She knew she goes, Donna, what is that? And I said, it's a tree being struck by lightning. And she said, you're an abstract choreographer. And I really felt I was struck by lightning. I was like, and I ran home, and I said, Mom, no one followed or chased me that day, thank goodness. I said, Mom, I'm not gonna go to med school. And she goes, oh, okay. I go, I'm an abstract choreographer. And she said, what is that? I said, I don't know, but I know that's what I am. And my dad, thank goodness, okay, the Uchizono family is very big. There were 6 kids. And if I was the daughter of any of my uncles or aunts, I would not be a choreographer. Because I told my dad, I go, Dad, I'm not going to go to med school. I'm an abstract choreographer. And he looked at me and he said, okay, you have a calling. And so from the very beginning, I've always been interested in abstract work that has it's like there are narrative scraps that float in and out, but it's not as obviously literal. I think that it's kind of obvious sometimes what's going on in there, but it's not. So I'm not answering the question because I feel like I just concentrate on the work. And there have been a couple, like I did a couple of pieces with poi balls and talking, about the balls, and how one time I was like a newscaster, because in California, most of the newscaster at the time I was growing up were Asian. So would talk about like, hello, the weather. But I haven't been so interested in, I've been interested in like social issues or that are larger than my ancestral heritage. And so I feel like I haven't, maybe postmodern lineage is a little bit more giving and gracious because ballet is, like it is definitely a European form. And so I probably had some grace that you as a ballet maker didn't have, but you're changing that, and you're changing that by your work, right? Like, do you feel like I didn't answer your question at all? It's because my work, is just, I think I've always been interested in abstract, and I feel like my ancestry is in it because I'm making it. I mean, the way my mom, she was interested in ikebana, which is the art of flower arranging. And I go, Mom, you take flowers and you put it in a vase. You don't like, or like the way she would put things on the table, it was like, and if she was making a Japanese meal, which was not as often as I would have liked, it's like all these little plates, and they were perfectly placed. Like she would put it down and there was a sense of placement, and it was like, oh my gosh. And the way she would do flowers were like way off one way, and then there's like a little thing here. And all of that I think is in my work. Like that part I think is in my work. Also the kind of rigor with detail, which is very much my mom. My dad was a little bit more loose, about everything. But so that, because I think my work isn't overtly Asian, even though I'm Asian, so it is Asian. It has to be. I mean, I can't separate from it. I didn't answer your question because I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, I think you actually sort of, I mean, from my perspective, you sort of answered it by, not answering it or answering it in your own way, because I think, and it's really speaking to, the topic this evening. And just doing a quick time check, it's 7:40. I do see Bonnie Otahamzi's hand up. Bonnie, can I ask you to just kind of hold that question for a second? Because I kind of want to make sure that we have time also for the breakout rooms. Donna, can you maybe in the next just like 4 or 5 minutes, can you, before we sort of broaden out the conversation to the room, can you maybe, and I think you started in a way to implicitly point to it, responses, strategies, dare I even use the word solutions, or at least solutions for yourself or your own practice of how to deal with, navigating this minefield. You brought out so much from your experience, even in these just few minutes we've had with you, about the kind of very tricky, yeah, exactly, I think exactly that minefield that not just simply white supremacy, but like any dominant culture does to its more marginalized communities and folks, to make them feel simultaneously, as you said, the perpetual foreigner, to simultaneously make them feel either othered and or sometimes at the same time included, but playing by certain rules or fitting into, a certain box or definition. You pointed, for example, to the fact that you were working in essentially a white discipline or a white, form, a lineage. And yet, of course, from your experience, exactly what is Asian about your practice, whether that's your form or your technique or your style, or, whether that's the imagery or the emotion or the energy, whatever it is, or the way that you just treat certain bodies on stage. So I'm just curious in a couple of concise moments. How do you feel that you've, sort of responded? How have you made your career work for you where you still feel like you, at the end of it all?
You're going to think I'm not a very good, because
All answers are right, because for each of us, we have a totally separate, a totally different, what we have to do.
gosh, I know that this is just, and it's not me trying to avoid it. I mean, really, I don't feel like I had any strategy. I feel like I didn't know what I was doing, that I really had to just keep concentrating on the work. Like, for me, the dance has been both my question and answer and question and answer and question and answer and question and answer. If I didn't have dance, I and I feel like the challenges that I have gone through is I would go to dance to try to answer it. And um, I also have to say that there were people, presenters, and in my life that really helped me, um, that supported the work. Um, and except for one, they were all white. So like Philip Byther at the Walker Arts Center, David White, formerly at Dance Theater Workshop, Christy Edmonds at PICA, who was at UCLA, now is at, where is she at? Mass MoCA. Sixto Wagon, who is Asian, Sun Sun Wong, when she was at in San Francisco. That also, I don't know, I think that I'm also was coming from, let me just say also my community, I was coming from downtown, when it was downtown dance, and everything goes at that time. Like you could do anything, you could be anything, you could be green. And so it was about accepting anything and anyone and everyone. And so I was also lucky at at the time that I was making work. Right now, I think it's a great time to be Asian. I think that people want to support more diverse voices. And so I think, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I mean, I think that the one thing that I feel like people responded to is everyone would say, Donna, you have an individual voice in your work. It's like no one else has work like you. It's you have a signature, whatever that signature is. And the signature seems to be like every piece is different. So that's another thing, is like trying to, like my colleagues and we would talk a lot about work, and we would want to be doing work in a similar way, but we're constantly also trying to figure out who we are apart from each other, even though we were interested in similar things. And so I feel like that those things were my strategy, even though I didn't know they were my strategy. And that was identifying who I really was as a choreographer, apart from all the people that I adored and loved, that I wanted to be like, and I couldn't be. So, Phil's going to be the next, Balanchine. No, but you know what I mean? It's like, you have to, like, I mean, shoot, you know, I loved like,
And the next Phil Chan, Donna. That's all I can be.
and then I'll be the next Phil Chan. Yes. I don't know. I'm sorry that I'm not.
You are totally answering it because you've answered it very honestly and very real and very, you know, from both from the heart as well as your, you know, all of the hard experience you've lived and created. So thank you for that. No, it's a gift. I want to thank you, Donna, and I want to broaden it out for a couple minutes to the room now. And then Bonnie, maybe you can, whatever you were thinking of asking or wanted to comment, maybe you can kind of work that in. But what I would love to do is now maybe if folks can kind of maybe just popcorn from the room. We welcome everyone into this conversation. Either from the discussion now with Donna, anything direct, or just anything that it made you think about, or just stuff that you're already thinking about in terms of, you know, sort of critical issues, in terms of challenges, responses, strategies, or again, you know, perhaps even solutions, at least for yourself. And we can kind of maybe come up with 2 or 3 breakout room topics, and we can all kind of go away for 10 minutes or so each, and then kind of come back and share. Anyone?
Michael, could I ask Donna a question? Quick question.
Jump in.
Donna, you know, when I was still performing and had my dance company, even though it wasn't Asian per se, it was very difficult for me within sort of the pigeonhole that people or genre defining that I was put into. How did you personally overcome the one and done mentality of presenters? You know, where, oh, you know, okay, well, we already have a quote Asian artist or Asian kind of company. So how did you deal with that in discussions with presenters?
Yeah, I think, Bonnie, for one thing, like, I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, but I feel like California has a different, I don't know, but it feels like California has a certain way of looking at Asians than New York. And I could be wrong. But I wasn't, I was lucky in that people were presenting me without, I mean, a lot, like, actually, I'm sorry, I can't answer this question again. I feel so, I feel like, again, where I was in this, there was this explosion when I moved to New York. And it was where people weren't, they were just looking at the work, and they weren't, I mean, they were accepting everyone and anything. And it was the, and so that was the world I was coming out of. And so the other thing is that some of these presenters were then coming to New York to take a look at work. And so I feel like had I been in California, I might have had a really, really different experience. And I could be wrong, but that's my feeling. I wasn't, I was, I mean, I was treated not as an Asian artist, but as a downtown artist, downtown New York, when it was cool to be in that thing. And so, like, you know, there was, at the time her name was Kumiko Kimoto, but she's now known as Kusio Wong, was one of my colleagues. There was John Jaspers, there was, and then like we'd go see John Kelly at the Pyramid Club. I mean, it was like everyone was being accepted in a very open. I felt like I was coming into a very open place. And I remember thinking, I remember, you know, I wanted to choreograph, but when Jeff Slayton let go of his company, I took a year to exorcise Cunningham out of my body because I loved it, but I had to exorcise it out of my body. And when I came to New York, um, I I was like, gosh, you can do anything. You can really just do anything. And all these people are just trying to figure out who they are in that. And did you when you and so and at the time probably there was probably a tendency, and unfairly so, towards New York, you know, like presenters, both internationally were all coming to New York to see work. And then we would get, like I would get some work from it like a couple of years later. And so I think exposure was another thing. And am I wrong when I say that that sounds very specific to California? Like, was that a like a whole experience for you on a national?
Well, our home was UCLA, but in terms of just domestic touring, what I ran up against is if there was a company that sort of fit the certain, you know, non-white, non-traditional box, then it was a one and done attitude. And I would also venture to say that was something that was somewhat pervasive in the philanthropic and funding as well. Oh, well, we can't have too many of these because, you know, we have to spread it out. So I was just interested in how you tended to overcome or advocate for a different way of getting beyond this very narrow.
I mean, maybe I'll chime in. Just one of the things that I've noticed too is like as we're doing these like Asian choreography festivals, it's not just like the token Asian that's stepping through the door. We're opening the door and like collectively going through. So I've had the chance actually to present work with like, I don't know, Kylie Kwan like 4 times now because we just keep sharing programs. And it's lovely. And it's just having that lane to create in that I think eventually we hopefully will just get woven into the fabric of dance makers and we won't need that Asian lane. But even just in this sort of stepping stone, I think it's been a really empowering experience and not have to feel like, oh well, if this ballet company commissions me, then I'm the Asian for this year, or you know that there isn't room for anybody else, so I need to be cutthroat. Like this attitude, I think this rising generation is as there's more opportunities for all of us, we can collectively step through those doors. So I think like part of this community building we're trying to do is to actively build um, that spirit and that model. Like we call it the crab mentality, you know, in Asian cultures. I forgot who coined that, Filipino scientist, but like basically if you have a bag of like a bucket of crabs, if one crab starts to climb up to the top, the other crabs will, you know, drag him down to keep them all in the same bucket. So that's sort of this mentality that they're, you know, we're trying to avoid. So I don't know, just thinking about some possible things that we can collectively as a community change.
I think
Also sitting on panels. Oh God, I have sat on so many panels. Oh, how, you know, how horrible that can be in terms of like getting to the place where like, oh my gosh, there's 250 people who should get it and we're going to give 15 of them. Like panels is a place where you can like educate people who want to be educated. And that was a place where I felt like I could do some real strong advocacy. Not at the time, it was mainly for younger people who were having coming into this horrible economic situation that dance is in, and saying to, you know, funders, look, you can't expect them to have dance companies. They're not going to have dance companies. They're making work, you know, this is guerrilla warfare, got to take a, you know, so I was able to like, so sitting on panels and then being able to talk to presenters and in that way was a way that I feel like I was able to communicate on one-on-one and on an equal standing. So, but gosh, as we know, sitting on panels is so hard. So hard. That's where you see the reality of like, there are so many people deserving. Oh, broke my heart sometimes. Like I go, oh, can't believe I sat on a panel and that this person didn't get one. I mean, I just, so, but yes, it is a place where you can educate, I think, in the discussions. And so, also, I didn't have control over who was funding me and who was presenting me.
So other folks, other guests from the community in the room, as I put in the note in the chat, for some reason Zoom's not, the breakout room function is not appearing in my Zoom menu this evening. So we're just going to keep it all here. So let's have an open conversation with everyone. Please, anyone and everyone jump in. You know, we're very curious to hear about your own challenges, the way you've navigated them, your responses, everything from, you know, your own sort of, you know, protective mechanisms, to be honest, to strategies and maybe even solutions. How have you dealt with some of the issues that we've discussed this evening with Donna? I'm sure other folks in the room would be curious to hear from you as well. Anyone? And or if you have questions for Donna, since we have her here with us. We have about 20 minutes. Yeah, Kush.
Hi. I like Donna, at one point you mentioned that like you work primarily, or like your work is primarily seen by like white audiences. When you were like part of that downtown crew and everything like that, was that the same? Was it the same audience, or like was there a difference between, you know, when you were a recognized choreographer and who you were dancing for in the earlier part of your career?
In the, when I first started out, I would say that it was actually predominantly white and black. And as I started to tour, it was mainly predominantly white. But yeah, so there weren't, I mean, I hired someone for the show that we did that was co-presented by an organization called the Chocolate Factory, who I love, and the Bershnikov Art Center. And I really wanted to get more Asians in my audience. And we, a little bit, it gained. Can I just say something that has nothing to do with it, but does in some level? I was invited to make a piece at Cal State Long Beach. And this was maybe 2 years ago. And one of the dancers came up to me and said, I'm a quarter Asian, quarter actually Japanese. You can't see that, but I just wanted to let you know. And I wanted to let you know that my father is half Japanese, and he could not believe that they flew out an American-born Asian choreographer out from New York to California to make a piece. He'd never thought, he goes, dancers he had seen, but not an American that happened to be Asian. And she goes, he went wild. He looked you up. He's looking at all your work. And then that you were Japanese. And he was so excited, and that it kind of changed his feeling for her being in a dance program. And so there was something in me that I've been wanting to, and I've been talking to many people in academia and saying, I want to talk to young people and say, hey, you know, there are people like me out there. And I think that also some of the population is smaller because of cultural, you know, family. Like I said, if it wasn't for my father and mom, if I wasn't anyone, any of my uncle, I would not have been allowed to be a dancer. So there's also numbers in terms of, and also I do this weird experimental contemporary dance. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe that's, you know, something that keeps audiences away. I don't know. But yeah. Strange. Yes, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, sorry. We have a question from James and then from Achinta after that. James asks, do you sometimes take the difficult experiences you've described and make dances from them?
Always.
Okay, so.
I mean, I could talk about it, but I think that.
Well, no, you don't have to. It's up to you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of them are more like I was asked to do a piece for the quadrille and the Joyce, and it was in 2017 when I was asked, and I said, I'm going to make the best women's march piece ever in the whole damn world because of what was going on politically. I started an adoption process quite when I was maybe like late 30s, and it was I guess it was maybe a long pregnancy, maybe 14, 15 years, trying to get finally my daughter. And when I was finally matched, I went first nationally, but for some reason, no one wanted to pick an single Asian choreographer who made like, I don't know, $27,000 a year. I don't know why they didn't want to pick me, but no one did. So I went international, and I went to Nepal, and when I got my daughter, we were matched. The State Department closed it down because of blah, 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 blah. And it was horrible and painful. And so I did a piece about that experience. And yeah. And but a lot of it is a popular piece that people tend to like, and we're actually going to do it for Dance Space Project's 50th, is called State of Heads. People like that piece. I love that piece too. But it's called State of Heads. And for me, it was about, at the time, it was made in 1999, and I thought that the heads of state were disjointed from the body of the country. And so I used that idea, and that it's a kind of a fun, it's a funny piece, and people think it's a light piece, but actually isn't, because it's about the political tremors that were happening. But I didn't care that people thought that. It is a light piece in a weird way. Yeah, it has a lot of humor in it. But yeah, so sometimes they're like kind of broad ideas, and then sometimes they're very personal from a real like hard place.
Achinta has a question.
Yes.
Hi, Donna. Thank you so much for sharing. My children are also, this is not what I was raising my hand about, but my children are both adopted too. And So I just got really shaken up and hearing all that because I understand how we've gone through a lot. So anyway, thanks for sharing that. I was just gonna say it to Donna, but to everyone in the room also, there's also this thing that I've encountered for 20 plus years of making work and doing things and being Asian and first generation born here, which is like this sort of unpaid labor of being a consultant of all things Asian to presenters and various gatekeepers and even funders, and feeling this intense responsibility of educating, funding panels and presenters as to our very existence as artists that are born in this country, right, to Asian or immigrant parents. So with that, I just wanted to mention, because we were talking about the sort of responsibility or like the need to have people like us in the audiences and bring, not just have colleagues and composers like Phil was writing in the chat, and our other contemporaries of art sort of with us for the ride, but also to fill the houses. Because what I always hear is, well, like from certain white birds, for example, we'll hear, well, no one's going to come and see it if it's not, you know, contemporary, what we're used to seeing as contemporary, right? Like very white and Eurocentric. So they're basically asking us to assure them that we're going to fill the houses with our people. So I just wondered from everyone, if you've had that same experience, how you sort of answer it. It's kind of me just thinking out loud, but I don't know. I just feel this enormous responsibility to constantly be like, hey, we exist. There is more than one. And as for me, Indians aren't just classical Indian, and there's more than that. But we have to do all this convincing just because we're the first ones here talking about this. Like our parents weren't talking about this. So no one knows what to do with it, I think. And then you feel this tremendous like responsibility to educate, but also you're educating the gatekeepers. So it's this, we get a lot of smacks on the wrist, or I have, just maybe because I'm so brazen and outspoken. Like, how dare you talk to me like that, brown girl? I get a little of that. And then the target's on you, right, when you're open. So anyway, that's a lot to say. I just wonder how folks kind of grapple with that. Or Donna in particular, in your wisdom.
As you all notice, wisdom is not my thing here. So I don't know, does anyone else want to, I can say very little about it, or I can talk about it. But does anyone else want to chime in on that?
See one person with his hand up. To, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. I'm going to jump in actually, and just to comment that you know, I think about Achita's observation / question / issue a lot. For me, it's very much, you know, Donna identified this reality of being sort of boxed in as a perpetual, or framed as a perpetual foreigner, constantly, perennially, and that comes with both privilege as well from, you know, being invited into white adjacency and complicity, as well as othering and marginalization and oppression, because, you know, you're always also being constantly reminded, and you can never forget that you are other. And so we're going to put you on a pedestal over in the corner of the room by the door. So just to say that out loud, you know, and so that's my experience of that, and yeah, I personally make work about that as well. I'm curious what other folks in the room, if anybody else has any observations.
I actually think that this is the great time to talk about all of the issues that you want to talk about. I think people are like this panel that I was putting together. I was like, I'm going to invite people who are curious and who I didn't feel like they basically wanted to partner with me as an artist. And one of the reasons why I couldn't get the panel together was one of the women that I loved was Jenny Pickett, and when she passed in February, I think it was too early in March for me to figure out someone to replace her. But having those, like having someone like Jenny, Christy Edmonds, I just went to a dance space project benefit, and she was being honored. And one of the Taylor Mack couldn't be there, so he was on the video honoring her, and he said the one thing about Christy, he goes, she brought me to Royce, Royce Hall or UCLA, and I saw the place, it was so big, and I go, I can't feel that. She said, it's not your job to fill it. It's, as the presenter, it's my job. And so I feel like there are people that are already talking in the, and so I was like, I wanted to have a panel of these people who are saying, this is our responsibility. Like, this is not the artist's responsibility. And so I think that people are open to those conversations now more and more. And so I wanted to have these people on the panel because, first of all, no one, no one could accuse them of not having an American-born Asian choreographer on their thing, because they all did. And so we could talk about like why this is happening, what, how do we fix this? I had asked Sarah Nash from the NEA. I also asked Dina Hagog from Mellon. She couldn't do it. But so I feel like, unfortunately, your brazen self is so fantastic that you are, and that you're talking about this. And with all the backlash, like I've really had a lot of backlash, a lot. People like saying, how dare you, and I'm like, okay, exactly. I'm trying to correct what you're talking about. They go, what about this person? I go, my point exactly. That's just what I'm trying. But yeah, I've had, so I'm like, oh, how do I do this? I've had long conversations with this. Someone came and sat with me and we talked for 2 hours, and she's like, they didn't present me, da, da, da. And I go, I know, it's what I'm trying to help this. So yeah, thank goodness that you are who you are. And that the other thing is, though, when institutions call you to be a consultant, they have to pay. And people know that now. People know that I mean, dancers right now know that they have to be paid. In downtown dance, that used to not be true, but now they know they have to be paid. So you can say, look, just to remind you, I don't have institutional support. You have a salary. My time is, I need to be compensated. You can say that. And I was talking to Carla Peterson at Mansi, and she was like, I felt so bad when an artist said, hey, I need to get paid for this conversation. I mean, an artist that she was bringing to this Mansi, which is a dance residency. She was bringing this person, and the artist said to her, I need to get paid for this conversation because I don't have an institutional support. So you can ask and let people know, because she goes, oh my, I feel horrible. So I think that more and more people want to know. And those are the people that, and the other thing is, then you start, unfortunately, attached to those people who actually do want to hear you. And then you say, who else do you think can, yeah. But yeah, it's a drag, because then you think, oh, you have a black mark painted on you or stuff like that. And you don't. I don't think you do. I think that people think, she's someone that I need to think about next time I figure out a program.
So there's a couple last questions. Phil, forgive me, just 'cause you spoke a couple times. I'm going to skip you, and also because it's a good segue for Sarah's question. So Sarah asks, how do you view the relationship between artists and presenters, Donna? You know, within the context of this conversation.
Yeah. Again, okay. So I will have to say, I've been really lucky that the people who are interested in working with me were interested in partnering in different ways. So there was one, a couple presentations where I was like, boy, that person is, a lot of times in Europe, like in Hungary, they were not used to a woman like me as the director. And so I had to sometimes really be strong. Like I remember when we were at a theater in Hungary, they kept asking the tech guy, like how things should be. I kept saying, excuse me, I decide how things should be. And they go, Leo, what do you think? And Leo goes, whatever she says. And so I would say, okay, no, we need to do that in front of the curtain. Leo, what do you think? So the thing is, I've always, and sometimes I was wrong, but I've always gone in with presenters assuming that they really were excited and wanted to work with me and wanted to partner with me and wanted to know what things that made things better, and also just being very, very grateful for the things that they did do. Am I answering your question? I'm not answering your question.
No, you are. And I am asking this as a segue just to announce the next gold standard program will be about this topic. So I was very interested to hear what you had to say about it. But I heard when you're saying you were interested in working with presenters that wanted to partner with you in different ways. And I was wondering if you could dive more into what you meant by partnership. And how has that worked for you?
So like, so Christy Edmonds, when she had me come to PICA, Portland Institute of Contemporary Art, to the TBA festival, she would say, okay, Donna, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And so I would say, da, 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 da. And she goes, okay. So she would actually literally go out into the community and educate them about this thing that was going to happen. And then she would come back and she'd say, okay, so these are some of the questions that people have. And I go, oh, okay. And so in that way, she was really trying to, prepare the audience. But she invited me, so I didn't have to like work, she invited me to come. Philip Byther likes to do things like, I don't know, we had a composer that his background is music really, and he goes, oh, is there a way that we can bring your composer early, like before you guys come? Not that I think you're not important, but it would be great for this composer to talk about like how they're working with you, but in a music setting rather than in a dance setting. I said, oh, that's cool. Yeah, sure. Bring the composer out. And I would say David White at Dance Theater Workshop. David was like, at the time, well, Arlene, David was so active. It's really like, he was this, like, would say, how's it going? And one time I did a really horrible piece. Oh my gosh, it wasn't very good at all. And I felt so bad. And afterwards I said, David, I'm so sorry. He goes, oh, no. He goes, what is really interesting, Donna, is that I see you working things out. So I'm really interested in seeing not the next piece, but the piece after. So he really supported the artist way of working. Carla Peterson, she was at NYLA, same thing. She would say, oh, because I had to write this thing. I go, oh, I hate writing. She goes, do you want, well, why don't you send it to me and I'll look at it and I, will you? So like little kinds of things where people would step in and say, yeah, I was just really grateful for that. And the other thing is, when I got over being really shy, I realized that there are people, you know, like I had this, when I first were meeting them, they were like, oh, can I, da, 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 da. But they're like people that are vulnerable and always having to like, you know, sometimes have to say no, even to people that they like. And so I thought, oh, what is that like being? And sometimes I would kind of try to step into their shoes. Oh gosh, they're just people. They're sometimes, well, not David White, but just as scared as me to talk about these things and vulnerable in different ways. I don't know if that's helpful. Presenters, I don't know if I think that presenters really do want to partner. I don't, why would they be a presenter? I mean, that it is like as Christy said during the, you know, told Taylor Mack, this is my job. That's my responsibility. Your responsibility is to make the art. And my responsibility is to prepare the audience as best as I can and expose them to things that they might not like, and I'll let them know, hey, you may not like this, but this is, isn't this a great ride that we're on? When you have this conversation, you should have some presenters on in the conversation and some funders so that they can really speak directly to those questions. It's hard as an artist to answer, you know, those kinds of questions. And like I asked these different people to be on the panel because I can't answer questions about why the funding is the way it is. I need some funders. It's hard to sometimes get them on the panel, but even smaller funding is important. So, but the other thing is also saying, can I meet with you and not talk about you presenting me, but just, can I just talk with you about what your vision is for presenting? Like, and what it is that you're thinking about. Like that feels like, and that, you know, and so you're taking the pressure off of presenting you. And then you can also ask, how do I fit in your vision, my work?
I think all that's really important because speaking as both an artist and a presenter, you know, that's on both sides. I feel like that openness and that willingness and even interest, frankly, to just be in the room with each other on a basic, simultaneously professional and human level is often, as well as artistic, of course, is often, or frankly, most often lacking because there's so much pressure that people feel, they put on themselves, they put on each other, you know, for that next gig and that next gig and that next gig and that next opportunity. That, you know, I do feel in my experience in every direction, people start to lose sight of why they're even there to begin with. So thank you for pointing that out. I'm gonna, so we're essentially out of time, but I'm gonna jump to the last question. We have one more to wrap up. It's a kind of perfect thing to wrap up because it's sort of the point of the whole conversation. Phil asks, Donna, do you feel pressure to work with Asian creatives, Asian composers, for example, or others? Something our white peers might not have that same pressure, in other words. So for example, what if Bach or other white, canon artists also inspires us, at least at a given moment? Or what if are we opening the door? If we are opening the door, we feel a pressure to bring others with us. Is that something you feel? What is, how do you sort of what is your relationship, I guess, is what Phil's asking, if Phil can, with whiteness, good, bad, or otherwise.
I mean, I think in the beginning, I didn't feel pressured at all. First of all, I had this one composer that I saw, he was a white man. I saw him playing the cello, and it was when I was just starting out, and I said, damn, this guy thinks about music the way I think about dance. And he was much more established than I was, and I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to approach him, but I am. And so in the beginning, Ton and I, we improvised together. He made so many pieces. He moved to Europe and eventually passed away at the age of 47. But now I feel like, well, I also work with James Lowe, who's a genius. He's such a great, anyway, he's great. And Asian, but I wanted to work with him because of his work. Right now, I feel more that I want to pay attention. The composer that I've been working with, I would love to work with James Lowe again. I've been working with Okyeon Lee, who took me a long time to be able to work with a cellist, but she is a cellist from Korea. I worked with 2 projects with her. I would love to continue working with her, but she moved back to Korea, so I don't know how. There's another Asian composer, Han Bro, that I would like to work with, but this has been much more of a recent pull for me. When we just did the piece for the Perlman Art Center, which is this new performing arts center at the World Trade Center, and I was invited by Annie B. Parsons from Big Dance Theater to be part of this trisection piece. We were very conscious, and I remember when we were thinking about lighting designers, I mean, one of the lighting designers, I'd never worked with her, I didn't know her, but I was like, oh yeah, she's Asian, let's take her. Since we have 2 and they're both really good, why not? So I'm much more conscious about that now, but before I wasn't, to be honest.
I'd like to please join, if everyone can join me. I don't know, air applause for Donna. Thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. I do believe there was a lot of wisdom. Wisdom just comes from living it, living the life, and thank you so much for everything. Phil, do you want to take us out in a kind of gold standard frame? Sarah mentioned the next event. I can't remember the date off the top of my head.
Yeah, hope you guys can join us. And I think, again, reiterating, thank you so much for being with us and being in community. And we just to be able to have a monthly space where we can connect with other Asian folks and Asian creatives is just really important. So if you're able to join as a member, if you want to tell your friends and spread the word and get other Asian creatives to join us next month, we are going to be talking about the relationship between artists and presenters, especially as we are Asian. So how does your identity, how you talk about your identity, be a part of how you market yourself to get booked and get jobs? So Sarah is leading that. And we really hope that you guys can join us. And thank you again so much, Donna. Thank you, Michael. Really, really great to be in community with all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thank you, everybody.
So, Michael, thank you. I mean, I didn't know how to answer some of the questions. I felt
No,
really
you
bad.
totally, you totally answered the questions.
I know, but like you know, I felt bad because I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't really had a strategy on how to go beyond my Asianness.
Right.
And so that